How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. The transfer window is in full swing and nearly every single Premier League side has made a signing. And so today we are going to be going through every Premier League side that has made a signing, of course, and ranking their major transfer. We have our tier list here. We have all of the tiers. I think they're all pretty self-explanatory. And then at the end, we're going to be choosing our signing of the summer so far. Join along with me and put down in the comments what your thoughts are on the players that we have been speaking about through the video. And now, without further ado, now that we have our tier list, now that we have our players, let's get to ranking. Before we get straight into it, let me just say that if you're new to the channel, please make sure you subscribe, you hit that like button because it really does help me out, and you hit that notification bell so that you don't miss an upload. Right, let's rank. First of all, I think let's start with Luton Town, the new boys, of course. And let's talk about Chidozie Ogbene. Now, he's 26 years old and he's arrived at Luton Town on a free from Rotherham. So not bad, not too much money or any money at all, but his wages probably are going to be a little bit higher. He's not too bad either. He's got 8 goals and 4 assists in last season. So generally, he's pretty good. He's good at driving with the ball as well. He's got a good success rate when it comes to ground duels. However, because he comes from Rotherham and because he's not necessarily proven at the highest level, and I think Luton do need some Premier League talent if they're going to start to try to establish themselves and keep themselves up in the Premier League. I do think they need something like that. They need either a couple of players from the likes of Leicester or even Southampton just to up their general quality that little bit. That being said, 26 years old and he's got a bit of pace about him, he's got a bit of quality about him, he might be able to step himself up. But the point is, we just don't know until we see him. So for now, he's going to be a question mark. Let's move on. Let's now have a look at Chris Wood. Now, Chris Wood had a time at Newcastle which I think was very much questioned. I don't think people really understood the signing. It was a bit odd, and now he's going to Nottingham Forest, which seems a little bit more suitable. However, he's 31 years old and he's going to cost them £15 million. And at 31 years of age, I've just got to question that. Especially when he's played around about 25 times, 9 of those are starts. And he's only scored 3 goals. 2 of those goals were against sides that got relegated. So, is that really good enough? Is that good enough of an output for 15 million? I'm not too sure. I'm actually questioning whether it's a decent signing at all. Now, perhaps he might be able to prove us wrong. Perhaps there is a different thing. There might be a dovetail with him and Brennan Johnson. Perhaps Chris Wood and Brennan Johnson could be here, and then you've got the likes of Morgan Gibbs-White to be the main central attacking midfielder. He starts playing passes through into the 2 main dovetail strikers, and maybe there might be able to be something that comes out of it. But at the moment, I'm just not sure about Chris Wood, and for 15 million, I think Nottingham Forest can do better, if I'm honest. Let's now move on and talk about someone else. Talk about Jefferson Lerma, who's made a move from Bournemouth on a free to Crystal Palace. He is 28 years old, and honestly, I've got nothing bad to say about this one. I think it's pretty solid. I think if his age was a little bit lower and if he had just a little bit more about him, I think he'd be fine. Generally, I think he's pretty good in the tackle. He drives forward pretty well, and overall, he's a good player. I think Roy Hodgson will be able to utilise him well, and judging by the fact that they've let some players go, like James McArthur, I think that he's going to be absolutely fine. From what I've seen, Bournemouth are quite unhappy with the fact that Jefferson Lerma's gone. I know they want to upgrade, I know they have ambitions to do a little bit better, but I think he was a decent player for them, and they're going to be missing him, I think, come the start of next season. Crystal Palace have got themselves a nice deal there, I think. Now, let's go and have a look at Justin Kluivert, who, speaking of Bournemouth, has gone to Bournemouth from Roma. Kluivert is an interesting one for me because he had a great time at Ajax and he really burst onto the scene. Obviously, his name really puts him above everything else. And then he moved to Roma, and then he went on loan to Valencia, and he never really tried to or was able to establish himself. He's 24 years old and he's going to cost Bournemouth around about £10 million. Now, while the £10 million mark isn't too crazy, I think there's a big question mark over Kluivert and whether he can establish himself in a side. He's clearly got quality, but there have been some question marks about his work ethic. And overall, I just wonder whether his best times have passed him. Maybe everything went to his head a bit too quick, and maybe the pressure from being his father's son might have gotten to him. Perhaps he's just not as good as everyone assumed he was, and this is the level he's playing at. And I really do like the fact that Bournemouth are going for more ambitious signings. I've got no problem with Bournemouth making the signing at all. And £10 million isn't all too much, so overall, I think it's a decent piece of business. However, if I could place it in the middle here, I would, because I have got some question marks. I really do. Now, let's keep going and talk about Tom King, who has gone from the likes of Rotherham United and moved to Wolverhampton Wanderers. Now, normally for a free transfer for a 28-year-old, I would be absolutely fine with it. However, I don't really see why Wolves need him. They have 4 goalkeepers already. I didn't think that Jose Sarr was particularly poor last season. I, in fact, thought he saved Wolves on a couple of occasions. So why are they signing a goalkeeper on a free transfer? Unless they're planning on getting Sarr out of the club or a couple of other goalkeepers. Just seems a little bit odd to me. Perhaps he's going to be a backup. And I have heard that some Wolves scouts think that he's going to be a really good goalkeeper to have around the place. So maybe there's something that we haven't seen yet. But at the moment, it's got a bit of a question mark over his head because it seems like quite an odd transfer. Speaking of odd transfers, let's talk about one that Wolves have let go, and that is Nathan Collins. He's 22 years old, or perhaps even just turned 23 years old. Now, he's 22 years old, and he's moved from Wolverhampton Wanderers to Brentford for £23 million. Now, again, I'll say that again. He's 22 and he's moved for £23 million. I just don't get this one from Wolves' perspective. Now, while they had a pretty poor season, I saw a lot of people not happy with the way that Collins played. They said he was too slow and he was just making himself far too available to be got at by opposition attackers. And while that's the case, I do think that Wolves' midfield failed to really cover him in pivotal scenarios. And yes, while he got a red card and a couple of yellow cards, and that really didn't help him, especially with his confidence, I didn't think he was too bad of a player, and I definitely thought there were more players in that Wolves setup that could have done much better than him. It seems like a baffling one. Now, on the flip side, from a Brentford point of view, I think this is a fantastic signing. And really, that's the side that we are meant to be talking about. So, Brentford have got an absolute gem on their hands here, I think. He's tall, I believe he's 6'4". He's got good physicality, he's good at passing. I believe within his own half, he's got a passing percentage of around about 90%. And when I tell you that he's won over 50% of his ground and aerial duels, that's not bad at all. 22 years old and he can only get better. He's still learning the game. And under a more defensive coach like Thomas Frank, who's got his side set up very well, I think he's going to be an absolute gem. I think this is a great signing. I'm tempted to even put him in here because I just think he's great. It's a brilliant signing for Brentford, and I think they're really going to like it. They've made it their record transfer fee as well, and that implies that they really, really do rate him. It's a good signing for me. Good signing indeed. Let's move on and talk about another defender, and that's Pau Torres. Pau Torres, who has moved from Villarreal to Aston Villa. Now, he's 26 years old. Fine, okay. But he's moved for £33 million. Now, Pau Torres, if you are unaware, was being linked with the likes of Manchester City. He was being linked with the likes of Manchester United a few years ago. And even the likes of PSG and Barcelona in certain occasions. And he's moving to Aston Villa for less than £40 million. That is unbelievable. Unai Emery must have had a massive impact on this and bringing him to the club. But for me, this is a stellar signing. Is he top Champions League level quality? No, I'm not sure he is. But is he good enough to seriously improve that Villa back line? Oh, yes. 100%. It's a great signing. End of. Honestly. Let me know your thoughts about him, because I think this is just an unbelievable signing. Right, let's move on. Let's keep it going. And speaking of defenders, while we're still on the level of centre-backs, let's talk about Jordan Bayer from Borussia Mönchengladbach, who has moved from Gladbach to Burnley for under or around about 15 million euros. Now, that's not a bad signing at all. He was on loan at Burnley last season, and clearly Burnley saw enough of him to make him a permanent move. Now, he's only 23 years old, and he can only get better under Vincent Kompany's tenure. And generally, I think he's a pretty good player, and he's one that I think Burnley would have looked at to really make sure they kept during their fantastic campaign, and they've managed to secure that deal. A brilliant bit of business, and I think they will be very happy with their most recent and major purchase. We're starting to get towards the end, so let's keep it going, and let's talk about Mason Mount, who's moved from Chelsea to Manchester United for a total of £55 million plus add-ons. The add-ons take it to £60 million from Chelsea, and he has a year left on his contract. Now, it's the year left on his contract that I have a bit of an issue with, and I think a lot of people have an issue with. He's a very good player, yes, we know what he can do. He's got a high work rate, he presses very well, and he's got some quality on the ball. But 1 year left on your contract, is that really good enough? Is it? I think that's a lot of money. But that being said, Erik ten Hag has desperately wanted him. He's wanted him since Erik ten Hag was at Ajax. He tried to poach him from Chelsea earlier on, or a few years ago. So, overall, Manchester United have finally, or Ten Hag has finally got his man. Just a lot of money, which means it's not in this category. But overall, I would say that it's a pretty good signing. As is a lot of these signings that we're going to be talking about towards the end. Let's talk about Brighton and João Pedro. Brighton's recruitment is something that has been lauded and talked about for quite some time now. I think people have started to really realise that Brighton are pretty much the next level of people when it comes to finding gems and finding talent. And they also have a really good negotiating tactic. It's almost the same one that Dortmund have. They bring over young talent with the expectation and the knowledge that they can move them on if they ever get a big enough offer. And that entices players like João Pedro and the likes of Jude Bellingham from a couple of years ago. Because if they manage to establish themselves in the team, they know they're going to get a bigger move, and that the likes of Dortmund or Brighton won't get in their way. We've seen that with the likes of Alexis McAllister, and we're soon to be seeing that with the likes of Moises Caicedo. We've obviously already seen it with Ben White as well. And generally, I think this is a fantastic move. I think it's really good. £30 million is quite a lot. He's not necessarily proven in the Premier League, but he's got a bucket load of quality. He's 21 years old, and really, I think he's a stellar signing. I think De Zerbi's done a good one here. I think it's pretty good. As for a pretty good signing, let's talk about Declan Rice, who's obviously going to be making his way over to Arsenal from West Ham United. This is the biggest amount of money this season, and that's £105 million. Will this be broken? That's a little bit of trivia, a bit of question to you. Please let me know in the comment section below. Do you believe the £105 million transfer fee will be broken this season, or is it going to go to Declan Rice's transfer from West Ham to Arsenal? Let me know. What do you think the transfer will be, and how much do you think it will be cost if it is to be broken this season? But Declan Rice he's a fantastic player, really, isn't he? He's just absolutely golden. Have Arsenal overpaid by about £30 million, in my opinion? Yes. Is he worth the £105 million they're paying? No. But is he worth that to Arsenal? And that is a crucial thing. Is he worth it to Arsenal? Yes, I do. I think he is. I think they would have had a figure in mind that they're willing to pay. They've paid that, and West Ham are happy, Arsenal are happy, and it's just about making sure that they can structure the deal in a way that both clubs are in a good place. Declan Rice is a fantastic signing for Arsenal and could even make them title challengers once more. Now, let's talk about Christopher Nkunku, who has made the move from RB Leipzig to Chelsea for a fee of £52 million. He is 25 years old now, I believe. 24 or just gone on 25, and this is a brilliant signing. Is it fantastic, though? Is it the top category? Is it really? Now, I don't want to be continuously negative. However, we're going to be. So let's just park that for a moment. Christopher Nkunku. Chelsea have had some decent business with sides from Germany for quite some time now. You think of Timo Werner, you think of Kai Havertz. Even Naby Keita has made the move over to Liverpool. And all of these players have struggled. All of these players have failed to really establish themselves in major sides that will really get themselves going. And for that reason, is there a bit of doubt in this one? £52 million is a lot of money, yes. And his numbers, don't get me wrong, are ridiculous. And I do believe that Mauricio Pochettino will absolutely be able to get a tune out of him. But for now, there is still going to be a lingering bit of doubt as to why it's not a major signing. It's a lot of majors there. But yeah, for the moment, Christopher Nkunku is a great signing, not one of the best signings. Moving on with one of the best signings, I think James Madison is an absolute steal. Honestly, I really do. I think James Madison is an absolute steal. £40 million. He's one of the most creative players in the Premier League. I believe he's got something along the lines of 19 goals and assists together combined. He was absolutely ridiculous. He's got one of the highest amount of assists in the Premier League last season, and considering the fact that Leicester got relegated and he still had that, that's pretty impressive. James Madison is an absolute steal, going to Tottenham Hotspur for £40 million. Just a gem. A gem. Brilliant move by Tottenham. 3 more players are left before we can end, and we have Dominic Solanke up next. What a signing this is. Liverpool obviously paid that release clause. I believe it was €60 million. And generally, this is just a brilliant signing. If it was €70 million, it's still a great signing. He's 22 years of age. His stats are actually ridiculous. He can play on the right wing. He can play as a right attacking midfielder. He can play just in a number of places. He's got great passing. He drives with the ball. He's good at shooting. He hits the target regularly. I think he's fantastic. Dominic Solanke to Liverpool is definitely one of the best signings this season. And then there were two. Gvardiol from RB Leipzig to Manchester City is going to be our next one up. Now, £85 million is the fee that is being touted for Gvardiol and his move to Manchester City. I believe RB Leipzig want €100 million, and they want him to be the most expensive defender in history. And I think that will be the case if this deal goes through. How much they are able to push Manchester City for this defender is going to remain to be seen. Personal terms are estimated to have been agreed, and it looks like this deal is going to go through. Obviously, Gvardiol will play on that left-hand side where Laporte wanted to play, because Laporte is now going to be leaving Manchester City. It all makes sense. He's a fantastic player, 21 years of age, and he's one of the, if not the main up-and-coming centre-back in the world currently. A brilliant move. But is he worth the money currently? I'm not so sure. Now, is he worth the money to Manchester City? Possibly. And is that the same kind of argument that I made for Declan Rice? Yes, it is. So you can put it in the middle between these two. A defender and a defensive midfielder, I believe, have different characteristics and different qualities. So it's either here or there, but I'm not so sure. I think overall, he probably is a good signing, not one of the best signings. Remains to be seen, though. He's a top talent. As for top talents, we have Tonali, finally moving from AC Milan to Newcastle United. Now, aside from this being a massive, and I do mean massive coup for Newcastle United, Tonali is 23 years old. He's really good with the ball at his feet. He's really good at pressurising and pushing forwards, which is naturally what this Newcastle side want to do. He moved for £52 million, which really isn't that much when you think about it, considering his age, considering he hasn't hit his prime yet, and considering that he's in an up-and-coming Newcastle side that are going to be playing Champions League football. This is a fantastic signing, and Newcastle have done a bit of brilliant business there. Right, now we have our main rankings. Now that's all that's left to do is to pick our signing of the summer so far. For me, it's got to be one of these, hasn't it? Really, it would be a little bit daft if I was to pick any of the other ones. For me, I would say that they're all pretty fantastic, but generally, I think Dominic Solanke is an absolute gem at the moment for Liverpool, and he's just fantastic. He's just fantastic. You can't really beat him. But you can, can't you? And it's got to be Tonali. Tonali is an absolute gem when it comes to everything that Newcastle want to be. It's a statement and an establishment in the order that Newcastle want to have going into next season. It proves that they're at the top table, and it proves that teams need to take them seriously. For me, Tonali is the signing of the summer so far for Newcastle. And that is our ranking. Now what I want is for you to let me know who you would have in these positions and who you think is your signing of the summer so far. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. Please make sure you like the video, you subscribe to the channel, and you hit that notification bell. That is it from me for today. I will see you guys in the next one. But until then, take care.